The war in Ukraine this week took on an absolutely bizarre turn. This is Alexander Dugin with his daughter Darya Dugina. The father's been called Putin's Rasputin. His inspiration is an ultra-nationalist philosopher who's cheered the president's war, and his daughter has done the same as a journalist. Now, on Saturday, both were at an arts festival outside Moscow, and Darya Dugina decided to drive home in her father's car while he stayed back. There was a bomb in that car and she died in the explosion, leaving her father dazed with his head in his hands, looking at the wreckage. Russia immediately blamed Ukraine. Ukraine's denied responsibility. But in just 2 days, Russian investigators, what clever people they are, claimed they'd found the killer, a Ukrainian spy in her 40s, a woman who's they say is a member of the Azov battalion. They even found her card. A battalion that the Russians claim are Nazis. They said this spy rented an apartment in Darya Dugina's building for a month, and after the assassination, fled over the border with Estonia with a 12-year-old daughter. She was filmed at the checkpoint. And now Russia is threatening Estonia with punishment. It's threatening Ukraine with more missiles. And yet this story seems so dodgy. I mean, the Russians tracked down this spy in just 2 days, and they somehow found her ID with the Azov battalion just lying around. And Ukraine spent all this effort to assassinate the daughter of a philosopher who wasn't even in Putin's inner circle. They didn't even get the dad, they got the daughter. And if that already wasn't odd enough, check again that footage of the supposed spy's car being checked on the border, and wait, I've frozen the picture. Isn't that a cat cage in the back seat? The footage is cut off, the footage that Russia released, before we get a good look inside that cage. But which spy takes her daughter and a cat on a kill mission in Russia? Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan, The Australian. Greg, what on earth is going on here? Solve this mystery for us, oh great guru.
Well, Andrew, there's absolutely no reason to believe the Russian story at all. I mean, everything the Russian government says is lies, and everything they say about international espionage is lies and spies and so on. Alexander Dugin is a fascinating figure. I've written a lot about him in the past. He is truly the evil genius behind Vladimir Putin's ideology. This seems to be most likely to be the first sign of real dissent we've seen within the ruling circles of Russia. Dugin may be a lot more influential with Putin than we've been led to believe. His books are worth reading. They're sort of technicolor madness. He espouses an ideology called Eurasianism and another ideology called traditionalism, which means that all modern life is evil. But he's seriously weird. He not only believes that Russia is unique and defining world civilization, but that it is protected by a special guardian angel who is at war with the guardian angel of the West. He believes there is an end time struggle going on between virtuous Russian civilization and corrupt Western civilization, and he embraces death. He thinks death is the end point of this the struggle, and quite glorious. But he has been promoted by Putin. He's had a lot of contact with Putin. Now, I wouldn't give two bobs worth for this story about the Ukrainians assassinating his daughter, but I think there's and the only other possibility I'd flag is that Russia sometimes does very strange things against some of its own people in order to create pretexts for actions. Like they have bombed, Russians, claimed it was the Chechens, and then gone after Chechnya. I don't think that's happening in this case, but I have no belief at all that it's the Ukrainians.
Well, I tell you what, it reads like a James Bond kind of thriller. The killer brought the cat and a daughter to the kill. I mean, seriously? I mean, it's weird. Something else is going very odd, Greg. Very sad, I think. Russia has between 160,000 and 200,000 Jews. Now, at least 20% of them, that's 40,000, seem to have left for Israel in the 6 months since Russia invaded Ukraine. They just fled Russia, and they include the chief rabbi who's also fled. And Russia's justice minister is now trying to shut down the Jewish Agency's branch in Russia that facilitates immigration for allegedly sending confidential data about Russian citizens abroad. What on earth is the story here?
Well, Putin is a very eccentric and diverse dictator. And sadly, Andrew, some people on the right in the United States and even in Australia think he's wonderful because he funds the Russian Orthodox Church and he talks in a manly way, and he even sometimes says he's defending Western values, although his chief ideologue Dugin hates Western values. But until quite recently, he had a pretty good working relationship with Israel. Now, more than 1 million Russian Jews fled to Israel, and they are magnificent people. They're the heart of a lot of Israel's high-tech industry. And Russia had a working relationship with Israel. Now, the current Prime Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid, has criticised Russia's shocking, unjustified, absolutely disgusting invasion of Ukraine. And of course, Putin, like all crazy, narcissistic, mad dictators, can't bear any criticism. And so he is now lashed back by not only being unhappy with Israel, but being unhappy with the Russian Jews who had stayed there all this time. It's a quite small population, 160 to 200,000, 20 to 40,000 have now fled. And of course, mixed in with Alexander Dugin's crazy ideology is a lot of traditional anti-Semitism. Putin accuses Zelensky, who is himself Jewish, of being a Nazi, which is kind of completely barking mad. But these dark currents of traditional Russian anti-Semitism, which mix in with its anti-Westernism, are something that Putin could easily fall into right now. I mean, it's terribly ugly. It's very wicked, and it's characteristic Putin.
I tell you what, Russia's fast becoming one of those one more place that they lose their Jews. The world is becoming very unwelcoming for Jews in a lot of parts. Just last, I'm sort of out of time, but I really want to hear from you on this, Greg. Scott Morrison, Labor's pursuit of him. Is this really over the top? It strikes me as almost like becoming, at risk of becoming, as hysterical as the Democrats' hounding of Donald Trump.
Well, it's certainly over the top, although I'd say just in the spirit of professional journalism, I don't blame Anthony Albanese for having a picnic when Scott Morrison has given him such a gift. But what I think is truly bizarre is Morrison's own continuing performance. I thought his press conference the other day was a complete train wreck, and he still doesn't think he did anything wrong. There's not a sinner in his own party which will defend this bizarre, crazy move that he undertook. And tell me, Andrew, what on earth is the defence for doing it in secret, keeping it secret from the cabinet ministers whom he deceived because he didn't want them to be upset or something? So he's going to trust them in a national security crisis, defence of the realm and all that, but he doesn't want them to be upset by knowing that he's... I mean, this is just crackers. And it's so sad because there's a lot to like about Scott Morrison. I'm not a hater of Scott Morrison, but this is weird, and he'd be much better off just saying, look, I had a brain fade, this was a dumb thing to do, I'm sorry.
Look, he's devastated the Liberals for now, he's led them to defeat, and now he's absolutely destroying them. The only thing he could do to honour the party that made him their Prime Minister is, how about say sorry? Just be the scapegoat, take it all on board, just grovel and end this misery now. Because Albanese, like you say, it's like a vulture at a feeding frenzy. How can you ask him to stop? Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for your time.